Chish yoxatini tekat yuan. Adatawe yutakhwatank ya yagi. Snap yudo sago at ya shitka Native Education Program. Atlain atawe adach kajit udati ya masado sak. Kash at away kai outlatu you kadu seek. Daste ya kuiki aya ya sandek akshui a iti ayagi yan motla du nanawu dat ya dutsahihi ya kwahi yag kaik igi huna hechwasaku kwash huna de kakwakuch we kaik igi tuta kakde koa kwash kakwatakin we Jishugu yagi helkaden kwasaku ya tekat ye de ḥusteeyí wan qanins ye awa adati takhwatanktu shidehini táakw aya hastu inu qaqtatanen tatke tlakudzi atyawahi ya atlain qu hastu qede wutuati aqa awe UASI ya da atkalle yidosakwish schoon. Yewe achtuasaku preschool, schoon kuti, elementary school, schoon yeti, middle school, schoon katsku, high school, schoon, college, schoon plain, yewe achtuasaku. Schoon ka adachwe yis kuu. Ha'in haswustien. Aqa awe klei dihin awe hawakshi has awat eich. Ka yakei ka u ati hajit has awati. A itch is atwatuacha wujinu ʼatudli.átk. Ya kechasaku we yis shawat a khanduakat. Khatqewus Lingít ʼéináx wasa ituati. Khatqa melwasa wa eqqa aqa akhina kawanik du sai. Du Lingít sai o khosaku. Qaqwus ha de shitana gewa. Ho oe yake. Du hlil kutlein oe qalqaw. Qaachtu yake du inu qaqtatani. Qanachoe achtu sagu. Jutlai kelchasaku achinu qewatan Lingít ʼéináx. Aqa awe achtu qadati. Juea achtu kaudiyas achtu wuduwaga. Kel de katwe Lingít ʼéináx yqalla atki khosaka. Yake. Shtuqa khatati. Ya kel de kat has khosaku. Ye awa achtuasaku. Wasa hashagurtaha. Juea Lingít ʼéináx de kat yech. Ye awa adatawe yutakhwatanktu. Du qagaqi. Chatleich. Qaqasti. Lingít. Ye awa du yitawe adati qewatan achnin a itch. Qalqaw du tuwu ke. Lingít ʼéináx aya qone yantushagugu. Ya achtu yake adat atsu. Gulchisha isa achi. Das adat tiutan. Das ad bituasagu adat ʼatudli.átk. Okay.
I'll say something. Yagi kusiyat dak hak. Excuse me.
Chitlish du schoonwan yada katledach Chwatin Nistat? Yekwe?
Nisdat, tatke. Nisdat, tatke khana, tatke taat. Tatke khoa, just tatke.
Tatke.
Ah,
Yayagi kusiyat dakkak treka ka jinkat degrees atayit awa tatke we hoot would do a team we jaji day kuk kuk tlis uke ishan hoot ye hwaji ya kusti ya teak yeedát gwash slach kusa'at outly shot with hoot achaya kulichet shan ide akadeawe ye hwaji we hoot gakduhun agat any hoochawe.
oh.
I'm just trying to say so I was just trying to say this bear was seen yesterday on the ski trails, and it's not good. It's hard for it, and so I think people realize it needs to be euthanized, because it just can't live in that. It's just too cold, and so I would like to know, like, how you say, or how you express modality, I guess, in like it should be, or it's necessary that it's put down.
I think you'd say, so I think you'd have ke in front of it. So let's look, I think there's some examples of this. Let me find it.
I think you talked about it before, but I forgot.
No, it's good to like go over it again because that was probably a different situation, maybe even a different class. So there's this little particle that we kind of started noticing, I think, in Elizabeth Nyman's stuff, and it's eh. So it's a low tone eh. It pops up. It's a preverb type of thing. I don't really have it on my list of preverbs because I don't think it's that common. But you could say k'eush, and then you have a command form, and k'eush would be like if only, like k'eush cha, if only you ate that. So you would have like a command, and then you'd also have k verb ush, which you have like as if, and I think there's this other combination which would be ke and a hortative, which would be it should happen. So then I think you'd have qatujaq would be let someone kill it. So then you'd say qehtujaq. I think that's how you'd say something like that. Like someone should kill it, is what you're saying. And you might, in some of these situations too, and so some of these things are pretty sensitive. We have a close relationship with animals. We eat them all the time. But like if you came across an animal too that was so injured that it was like a danger to people, like it might harm people, or you might think that it's not going to survive and it's going to suffer. then that's a situation too where you might say it should be killed. So like, and I was thinking of this kind of stuff too because like we have things like this potential. So the potential of ʻukahaa, ʻatudli.átk. They were looking for something they could kill, which is usually saying they're trying to hunt something. And sometimes you have these sort of ways to talk around some of those things because with hunting, in Lingít, you're not really supposed to say, I'm going hunting or I'm going to go hunt this thing. And so you might say, ʻukahaa, we're going to go look for something we might kill. And so you end up with a might on there or could, ʻukahaa, and then you could say ʻukahaayi, something that can be eaten. ʻukahaayi ʻatk. Yeedát was looking for something he could eat. And so, you could use those. So you got ʻukahaayi, and you could have ʻukahaayi ʻatk. I'm looking for something I can eat. And then you can have like these hortatives. So you could say ʻéináx. We should go over there, right? And so like as we're discussing situations, like let's say if someone goes through like a real hard time, like a loss, sometimes as human beings, we talk about, gosh, we should do something for them, but maybe they want privacy. But then you might say, we should go see them. And that's where I think you get this being used. And so it's certainly worth checking out. Like you could do a word search for in the nanéin stories, and I think you'll come up with some really cool stuff. And then ḥoon, ḥoon after a command. So like this would be like dan. If only you would give me some money, right? Which would be interesting. But then you could say way te, and then hand me that rock. But you could say in ḥoon that ḥoon kind of softens a command a little bit. I wouldn't quite put it on the same, like please is such an interesting thing. People usually ask how to say it. I usually say we don't really have that. But we do have ḥoon, which would be like may you kind of a thing. But I don't want it to be like a direct substitution for the way English takes care of like politeness. Because like Lingít does have a lot of, the politeness in Lingít I think is all about tone of voice and what kinds of things you say. And like how often you use command forms and whether or not you would use command forms. Because with certain elders, I might not use too many command forms with them because I'm not going to tell them what to do, but if they're like, hand me that thing, and this is where some of these other forms might come in handy. Maybe maybe you'll hand me that. And so, but English is always interesting too with the way it deals with politeness and please and excuse me and those types of things. But I think it's good to know those ways of using the language and in these sort of ways that are talking about politeness and stuff. And so I think it's fine. I think it's fine to do that and to use ḥoon or to use ke in front of it. I think it's fine. Long time ago, you probably did. When you went up the kinship ladder, you tried not to use commands, or you did use very softened ones. But then when you go down the like you get your keek around, boss them around. Right, so it's a good question. Other things you folks been thinking about? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I'm excited. There's more people who speak Lingít who are just around. And so That's progress. We're making progress, folks. When someone comes up and talks to you, you're like, I don't even know. Like, you don't even know who they are. You start responding in Tlingit. Like, that's a kind of a dream scenario. Like, that used to happen. But it used to happen like people would say, oh, that person speaks Tlingit. And they would be speaking English, and I would try to engage with them in Tlingit. And that happens less and less. But now the substitution is people who I don't know are coming to speak Tlingit. And so that's really exciting. Okay, so I thought we'd start with a list. So here's the scenario. Let's say someone walks up to you and they just hand you this piece of paper and it's got this graphic on it. And they say, you gotta help me, I'm supposed to fill in the blanks here. Like, what do these things kind of mean? And I guess if someone asked you, because they're learning Tlingit as well, and they say, oh yeah, you're in advanced Tlingit. Can you tell me what a thematic prefix is? And go.
Isn't that the thing where it's like the hand or the finger or the thing that has to do with the part?
Yes. Ḳoon.
It changes the verb to be about a particular kind of. It changes the verb essentially. It turns the root into a different kind of verb. So you have yak, that's just about like regular things being good. And you have ḳukahaa, that's about the weather being good.
Okay, good example. Anything else? That was good. That was good. So this is what I'd like us to do. I'd like us to say more or less what these things are. I guess before we do that, and then this person asks you, yeah, but why are there these little numbers here in these little boxes?
Because you can have at least, or you can have up to one of each, but they're in a category, so you can only have one from each category.
Okay. And do the numbers mean something?
The order by which they appear.
Oh, okay. Sounds great. Okay, so as we sort of translate these terms or talk about what they generally mean, if you find yourself answering all of them, take a little break and let someone else answer. So what is ḳ?
Is it weather?
It's one of the things, yes. Is it anything else?
Things
People?
fall.
That's a different ḳ, because you can only, I'm glad you said that, because that ḳ is an object pronoun, and if you have this ḳ, that has to be qa. Because ḳ and qa are interchangeable, right? Like you could say ḳuxteeyí or ḳuxteeyí, I saw people, and you could say ḳaoxteeyí, I saw people. Ḳ is probably the preferred way speakers would do it. But if you said people exist, you would say ḳaqteeyí. So then it would have to be qa. But there is one other thing that this thing does. It can be the weather or one other thing.
That aerial?
Yes. So it's the aerial, which also, I would say it's the aerial, but it could also signal that we're talking about the weather. And if huh?
What is aerial?
Yes, what is aerial?
It's with space, I guess, or a certain area.
Yes,
So,
it has to do with a sense of space or some kind of area. That's just sort of generally what it does. And I guess we should get the meme makers to do like the Little Mermaid, and she could have a shirt that says ḳ. Isn't her name Ariel? Okay. So we have
Yes.
ḳ, ḳ, and ḳ. What is ḳ number 1.
Is it on?
No. But that one's coming. One of them is the surface thing, which I'll tell you is number 4.
Is it like sa mouth
No, that would
or
be
ka?
underline, which can pop up in spot number 2. What are our other options?
It's round.
That would be number 3.
Ah.
Ka. So now we've got it narrowed down. Now we know those ones are coming. There's one other ka thing, and they are absolute homonyms. I think you can only have 2 of these, though. Because so we say like you can have 1 per spot, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've never seen more than 3, I don't think. But you cannot have this ka and this ka. Not possible. You can have this one and this one, and this one and this one. So you could do a 1, 3 and a 1, 4, but not a 3, 4.
Can you do ya-ka?
Yes. But yes, and it has to go yaka. Yakawa done. It's snowing really hard. It snowed really hard. It's in yekuge. It's in yekusegenk, yegugenk, ayegugenk. It's in all of those. You can have, I think the verb is katit, to be rolling in the swell. But you can have kakatit, which means to be going up and down. So this one means we're comparing it to something. So this is what we call comparative, or it compares something. So what that means, you say yage, it's big. Ye kuge, it's this big, right? So you're specifying like some sort of comparison. Or you could say, it's not a super common one, but it pops up in a lot of size types of things. That's why you say yekusagink. And also, when you have this comparative, it likes to always pair with the irialis. So the irialis is a conjugation prefix, and when you have ka, you'll have this. That's why you say ye ku ge and yekusagink with the W in there. What about j
And
and t?
Is that like inside?
Inside. Sa.
Voice
Right.
mark?
Or base?
I heard
Voice marker?
voice or
Base.
ya is the face. It's a little bit lower.
I think she said base.
Oh, the base? It's like right here. Yeah, so the base of the neck. Yeah. If you have sa and ya, and, well, actually you have to have ya as the classifier, you'll get say. That's why you say khat say wa at. A khat say wa khaq. So I need to add the ya on here and make it purple. Okay. Sh.
Throat.
Point to
One of you said it.
Throat.
That would be tle. Nose or point.
the point of it or the nose.
Nose or the point. Yeah, oh well. Da.
The body.
There is da, but that wouldn't be, this one wouldn't usually have to do with the body.
Around.
Or
About.
yes, around or about. Okay. Ah.
Mouth.
The mouth or an opening. I want to add this here. Sh.
Head.
Yeah, oh well. Sh.
The end. Or something.
The end. Yeah, oh well. This one, as like when you get it outside, like most of these have, there's a noun form like jin, tu, se, sh, da, khe, sha, shu. They have noun forms, and some of them are relational nouns. Some of them, like you'll add an N on here. This changes to an E. This changes to an E. This one, the tone will sometimes be high on some of these. A verb prefix cannot have a high tone. Nothing in the prefix will have a high tone. They always have to stay low. The verbs, or the vowels will always be low. Okay. So now we have which is different than all the other ones above it, because there's not really a noun form. Have we talked about this thing yet? Do we know what it is?
It's called a thematic. Is that what it is, or something else?
Yes, it's called a thematic. And so this one is different because there's not really a meaning attached to it. I would say more of a function. What this usually does is it pushes you to focus on the action. And so for some verbs, you can have the built on there, like ʼatudli.átk. And so that's hunting. And you could say ʼakwatun. And you have, when you say ʼakwatun, let me make a note here. Hold on. So when you say ʼakwatun, that has to stay on there. So you're going to say ʼakwatun. And it's a little bigger. And so if you were to pull it apart, you have ga, ga, cha, 0. So that's what's in the prefix, right? A lot of things in there. And so this would be pink, right? So we go pink, gray, 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 red, purple. But if you wanted to say zisk, I'm going to hunt a moose. Now this changes. Like the thematic prefix drops, and it's actually a different verb, technically. And now it can become a regular third-person object. So it gets confusing because this looks like a third-person object, which is And so this would be zisk, and then you'd say ḳun. I'm going to hunt moose. I am going to hunt. I am going to hunt And then some verbs, like, so when you see this in the theme, it will be built into the theme, and if everything was done the right way these days, it'll be pink. So if we look in the dictionary for atún, we should see two different versions. So we'll go here, and then we see blue object, red subject, purple classifier, tune. Then we see pink A. So that tells you it's thematic and it has to be there. And it's in a lot of the body functions. So peeing, pooping, farting, burping. I don't think it's in to hiccup. But it's in a lot of body functions. Just, I don't know why. I had a theory and it busted my theory. I had to get someone to say like they pooped a rock or something like that. And the A stayed on there. So I thought maybe the A would change. But I think for body functions, it's just, for some body functions, it's just sort of built on there. Okay. Okay. Any questions about these ones?
Yeah, I have a question about that. I'm going to hunt moose when we're sometimes told you're not supposed to say that and just say we're going to go look around.
Yeah. So one thing that I have, so for this, you might be talking to someone and you might say, Gwash adkach tu'an. And then here, if someone has no idea what you're talking about, then you might have this ʼuqajaqi ʼatq. So you could say something like that. Something that, and then this can't, so this is ʼuqajaqi, and then that could be, I think you'd say ʼuqajaqi, and then I think you'd say ʼuqtuwajaqi, maybe. ʼuqtuwajaqi. Because you would have, you have Irialis, qa, mode, yeah, classifier. And that gets you uqa. So then, okay, anyways. Yeah, so you could say like, and so you could also say, so sometimes I'll say, Gwash hachuni yegach satin we ḳusteeyí. So maybe we'll see our friend that has the antlers. So there's different ways that I think you can encode this stuff. And so when you go back long time ago, I do think it was often the males who went hunting and they had this coded way of talking to each other. So they wouldn't say we're going hunting, and they might even avoid saying the name of the thing they're looking for, out of respect and also with this understanding that things can hear us when we talk. Even if I'm just talking like this and there's some deer way over there, it could still hear me. If I say, and then it might get insulted or it might just leave. And so there's those sort of philosophical, spiritual sort of things. And then there also used to be a thing where when they were out hunting, everybody in the household that stayed behind was supposed to be very calm. They weren't supposed to be super loud and running super hard. And they would just try and sort of imitate how they want the animals to be, which is very calm and not to run away. So, but that's sort of into ways of being.
There's Slagoon, when she's talking about the start of beaver hunting season, or she says Sigedi Hode and people went among the beavers. She doesn't really talk about hunting, but
so you could probably take that pattern and then you could say, right, same thing. And so what that means is I'm going to go be among them, or people go to be among them. And that's another like coded way to talk about, and with ʻagēdi, yeah, I've heard that one before. And it's interesting too, because if you change, and so you could say, oops, I spelled it wrong, it's ʻagēdi. So if you had ʻagēdi here, like this, they went among the beavers. Like, you would say that, and I would know what those words meant, but as far as cultural communication, I would say, oh, they went beaver hunting or trapping, right? It was one or the other. I know that that's what they were doing. But if I change this, now what is it?
They were taken.
By the landowners. So like, again, these are deeply cultural concepts, which is important when we get to communication, right? Because it's not just learning a whole set of words and what all these words mean, but also like how to use the language in these contexts, which is, we should be doing this again, right? So, okay. Sheesh. One more set to go. Oh, it's the second ka. What was that one again?
The surface one?
That one's coming, yes. That one's coming. It's always the last one. The surface is always number 4.
Ariel.
Ariel is ḳ.
Oh.
Spherical.
Yes, round or spherical. And what about ya?
Face.
Face or the vertical surface, just vertical. And what about ka?
Horizontal surface.
Yeah, now we got them all, right? So now we know them all. We know what space, what spot they're going to go in. It's kind of like, I think ḳ and ka are kind of locked. That locks up number 1. Ka and ya, that locks up number 3. Ka, that locks up space number 4. And number 2, you could have a whole bunch of things in. You could put a whole bunch of things in there. You could have ʻek, you can have tuk, you can have tuk, you can have, there's a whole list of things beyond this. But these are what I would say are the most common by far. And ka is number 1. This ka is like, I am the most common, everybody loves me, right? And so this one pops up on all kinds of verbs. Okay. So those last ones, round, vertical, horizontal. And you can't have both of these. It's like one or the other. But you can have ya and ka, definitely. Any questions about that? This ka is very common, and sometimes it will drop the letter A. A yahayik shahid. They are drawing a picture, right? And so in this case, you just got kshahid, which it's hard to say kshahid on its own, but if you put a vowel in front of it, a yahayik shahid. And it almost, when you say it, it sounds like that. A yahayik shahid. But it is really this. It's just that being contracted. That is probably the only one that can drop its vowel, as far as I know. The others, they can blend their vowel with something, but they generally, the thematic generally will not contract outside of this one, and then sa to say, kha to khe. The rest tend to just sort of keep their shape. I guess there is another exception where ḳ, so if you say, I am living, you'd say ḳusteeyí. But if you say you are living, you'd say ḳidziti. And then there are situations where if you wanted to tell someone, like you'd say kedain, and then what you would expect is we would go kikiste, I think is how you'd say, with the S go along. So this is qi, but that triggers us to switch to a, you probably say kedain kikiste. I think that's how you'd say it. Okay.
What does that phrase mean?
Oh, live well.
Live well.
Mm-hmm. So you could
Yes.
say that to younger people who are maybe you need to straighten up now.
So it's not used as a
Live the good life.
Yeah. Because
Kiste.
with the ḳusteeyí verb is really interesting because you have, there's two versions. There's object, ḳ, D plus S classifier, and T. And then there's ḳ subject, D plus S, T. And they are different. It's existing and living, right? So this is just to be in the world, to be here. This is to consciously exist, to live. And so again, this is getting into some pretty theoretical territory, but this is where I would say things like ha, tuwa, sigu, ha, and I'd say kagu, ḳoon, ki, yan, yach, ye, ḳusteeyí. We want to live like our ancient people. But then this is where you would have this. So these are both qa conjugation. But then this one has the subject in there. Was there another question? Did you have a question or a thought?
I think so. Well, I guess it's like a process question about like language documentation on your Yahai example. When you're when they were first documenting the language, how did they know that this? I'm trying to figure out how to say it because the thematic K, when speaking, tends to get dragged onto the Yahai there. How would you know that that's part of the verb and not, part of what came before the verb?
Yeah, well, probably this is the example, right? So people might write yanagut, right? Or they're probably hearing this, and they might say yanagut, right? Because you're saying, when you say it, it sounds like yanagut. So I guess when people are saying it, if you didn't know a whole lot about Lingít and the grammar of it, you probably hear someone say yanagut. And you'd say, oh, ade, I can hear that, yan, agut. But what's happening here is you have ya, nagut, but these are they clearly run into themselves. And this is what Lingít does. So Lingít will not allow two vowels to run into each other. Like when I learned Hawaiian, you just blend. I was like, you just go one vowel to the next vowel, and just run them. And I was like, I had to come to terms with that I could do that because Lingít will not allow that. What will happen is it will force the vowel to change. Like if you have sh and you have yi and ut, what do you get? Sh and yi can go together. You can get shayi, but you can't. You can have yi ut, but you have two options for yi and ut. You can go yi ut like that with a glottal. Like you could push them together and you can have a glottal. But you can have one other option. What is that? Anybody know?
Yeet.
Yeet.
Right? And so this will push the vowel to shift. You go yeedát to yeet. You will see it all the time. Because and this is interesting because you have sa'at, and then if sa'at contracts, you get sate. And I think these are two different things, which is interesting. Sa'at is like a necktie, and sate is a necklace. But those are technically the same word. You're just contracting one as opposed to the other. But this one does too. Like, so yeet is in a bunch of things, and yeat, I think we're going to see in our story when we get to that. So, but as far as like when, so if you come back and you say a yahayi shahid, and if you hear someone say that, a yahayik shahid, it is very hard to hear where the words separate. But I think the more you do it, because if you say, how would you say, well, this is actually the drawing of pictures, because you would have to say a yahayi akshahid. So with akshahid, you're getting the same thing, right? But you have a little bit of a yahayi akshahid. So Lingít forces you to stop at that vowel before you start the next one. But this is like a noun, so this means the drawing of pictures. So like if you want to say, we're going to work on drawing pictures, or yeah, we're going to teach people how to draw pictures. And so, but when you see akshahid, this is going through the same sort of contraction, where you see that in the surface one, it has to be the horizontal one, can drop, akshahid. But then when you do it, how would you say, so this is they are drawing a picture. How would you say they drew a picture?
A cow shahit.
And when we look at that, we say, looking at the theme, it's a zero conjugation verb. Zero closed perfectives are short and high, right? So a cow shahit. So once we hear that, then we sort of say, okay, yeah, that thing is the ka. And like, I think it's just repetition, 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 right? And then doing transcription, translation on your own, and having someone who can review it with you, who practices kind teaching methodologies to say, oh yeah, like this word, these are the, because word separation is a huge thing. And I think this has only really happened for Lingít over the past like 30 years, is where that word separation, because there's been lots of debates about how do we write this, and where does the word separate, and why is khat its own word as an object? And like all these conversations have happened. And a lot of it has been based on when it changes. So when you see a cow shahit, you know that has to be separate. And so I'm sure if you look at older things, when people were really starting to write Lingít, you'll find all kinds of things where you say, oh yeah, I see what they did there. Good question. Okay. Anything else? He was not far from the lakeshore. He had spilled his water. And that's kind of where we leave off. So the next line here. There's a false start in the middle. So the whole phrase would be ade yan dakat. There's our word separation thing right there. It's right there. 3 words, 1 verb phrase. Oh wait, 4 words, sorry. What is the first word? in the Hawaiian language school, they'd sing songs, and when you go through like their program and become like a student of Kahakaula o Ke'ilikilani, the College of Hawaiian Language, you spend a lot of time. Like we spent, I think, 3 weeks just observing their college classes. We just go into any class we wanted to, and people knew exactly what we were doing, why we were there. They wouldn't stop anything they were doing. We were just observers. And then we could go into any preschool or K through 12 classroom for the next 3 weeks, anyone we wanted to. Same thing. They knew, they would talk to us sometimes, but they would just keep doing what they were doing so we could observe it. And it was especially effective because by that point, we were kind of elementary level Hawaiian speakers and learners. But they would sing songs. So they had this ceremony called the piko, which we would call kū. Anybody know what kū is? Kū. Everybody has one. Oh, how it no. ʻātka ʻatudli.átk tuk. Ya you sako at tanu. Isikuge tanu. Atanu. Atanu tukane kudzati. A itch away to tanu awahash. A got to cool kudzati. A itch a day away. Hechosaku kat. Teshkadu. Duke. Teshkau do. Just itka akaye wuti. A gakush kudzati. What are those things? Tanu.
Umbilical cord, right?
Yes.
And belly button.
Yes. And so piko is belly button in Hawaiian. And people have 3 of them. One is your physical one where it's at. And okay, this is wild. Okay, here's a little bit of extra language stuff. So if I remember right, if I understand it right, there are 3 kush, nask kush kudzati. The one on your belly button connects you to your ancestors, because that's where your mother fed you. And there's a vowel associated with that. That is the vowel you use for your first person relational pronoun. There's a piko associated with your groin area, because that's how you're going to make future generations. And there was a vowel associated with that, which you would use for your first person relational pronoun. And then there's one on, like I think it's on or above your head, and it connects you to like the spiritual world. So you pick the vowel of the relational thing depending on how you're related to it. So it was wow. So you would have to know, like, you'd use a different relational pronoun for like my mother and my spouse and my children. Anyways, how did I get here? So I was in Hawaii and they kept saying, I kept hearing this word Yesu, and I was like, what is still happening? What's happening now? But that's how they, in Hawaiian, that's how you say Jesus, because they were singing hymns in their school. And so the first word here is Yesu.
Isaadayan yan dakat
Ade Yantaka. How am I going to spell this last part?
Isaadayan yan dakat
Guttural G. U accent T.
How about an A? This is underlined. I think it's just hard to see. Whoops.
Isaadayan. Yan dakat.
What is yan dakat?
Let him go.
Let him go would be ade ade naku ade nakagud. Sorry, nakagud. There we go. Let's go find. I'm trying to change the font of the thing, which maybe I shouldn't do, but I thought maybe the.
What is that verb, cut? Is that the verb?
Yeah, yandakat. So let's go look up qat and see if we could find it. Let's go here. Qat, qat. It's a trap. Qat is to split or fall apart, disoriented. Where is it? Do I not have it? Oh, there it is. Let's listen to it again.
Isaadayan. Yan dakat.
I just hear qat. I guess we're going to put this on there. And then so yesu has multiple uses. It could mean now, and it could mean still. I think, and I don't know how to tell which one it is. One of my theories was before the verb now, after the verb still. Because you'd say, ha, yuqewatannake yesu, or yuqetanke yesu. Are they still talking? And then if you say cha yesu, it's just now. So in this case, yesu, I would say now. Ade yandakat. If we say it's the same verb as yandakwat, which I think it is. Oh, let's go back to here. That is our verb, I think.
He crawled toward the lake.
Mm-hmm.
التقاطع التقاطع.
This is another consecutive.
Ant, the first word.
At is the first word.
There are 2 or 3 more words.
التقاطع.
Two left.
Ďaká.
This would be the same verb that we just had, but with a long high tone and a -I classifier. So if it was يندقت, so that is da, that's our da is already the -I classifier. But we're gonna go qat and then ay. At-daqat ay, which would be, so with the consecutive, what you're having is the conjugation prefix and a -I classifier. That's all you have as far as like, so these verb modes are all about these combinations, right? Ga, qa, -I classifier, future. Y plus I classifier, perfective. Y -I, negative perfective, right? And you have to put klesh in front of it. So this one you have the conjugation prefix, -I classifier, I think a long high stem. That's one thing I still have to figure out. And that means after. So the at is to arrive at. At-taqat ay. After he crawled there. And Lingít does note, like he didn't crawl towards there, he made it there. So if you say after he crawled towards there, you'd say nanéin. So you'd have the na pop up there. So it's an interesting form. Like I think you would say, so after I became a teacher, ʼatudli.átk ḵusteeyí, I think is how you would say that. Because you have na, sa, ti, and na will knock the vowel out of the sa classifier. ḳusteeyí, after I became a teacher.
Let's
Ah,
what you just said there. Tlatuwch chatsati. Can you say that? Tlatuwch chatsati.
so you'd say ʼatudli.átk. I am a teacher. You could take this whole same part. We could take that, and then when I became a teacher, I am a teacher, I became a teacher.
What I mean is, do you run them together and say it as one, or do you pause?
I would say ʼatudli.átk. These two. For those two, I run them together. There's a little bit of a lull. So for me, it goes ʼatudli.átk. So it's still kind of a ringing thing. It just sort of slows down a little bit, I guess, maybe. And so then you could say ģuqsati. And then you could say I'm always a teacher. And then you could say tleshku'atletuwch խusteeyí. I guess I should translate all of these. So I am a teacher. I became a teacher. Well, tleshku I became a teacher. I didn't become a teacher. I will become a teacher. I guess we had to do one before that. So, ʼxnaxati. Let me become a teacher.
How would you say when I was becoming a teacher? Like past, but like...
Yeah, so we could take this one and, whoops, you wouldn't take that one. You would, so we have this negative, the negative perfective. So we say, okay, take the klesh off of it, add that. When that I became a teacher. So that means, so we got to put like, maybe, oops, that means, we'll put that. It has to tie on to something. Like, I'm happy that I became a teacher. I have no time that I became a teacher, or whatever. Naxati. So we get a similar thing. So we get take this one, and you say naxatiyit. So this also needs to tie to something. So I can become a teacher. Skúncain yidechwagut ʼatudli.átk naxatiyit. I went to college so I could become a teacher. Chetnas teach. I am, oops, always a teacher. I haven't become a teacher yet. And we were in, I think, Glacier Bay a couple years ago, and I heard this one. Before I became a teacher. So, like all these different ways you could do that. Which takes us back to here. After he crawled there.
Yeah, he ni ade. Yeah, he ni ade.
Told you we're going to hear yeedát. Do we know what yeedát is? Is it in here? Oops. Well, there's a footstool, but that's xusteeyí, which is different. Tayi is different than yi. Yeedát is a dustpan. Yeedát is a crib. Yeedát, and it's a cushion that an icht would sit on. And yeedát is a container. I guess it's also household objects, but you'd probably have hit in front of it. Hit yeedát, which is a different, that yi is different than this yi. So there is, like, when we get to some of these things, we have to remember there are multiple yis. So there's y'all, like a relational pronoun. So yi jin, yi sha. There's y'all, which is an object pronoun. Yi sachan, yi satin. There's yi, which is below, which is this one for heen, yeedát, and there's yi, which is inside of a building. So there are some of these words in Tlingit where there's a few different sort of versions of these, right? So this one is a container. So now we come back and we say ya, heen, yeedát. This water container.
Heen ḳeeqataan. Heen ḳeeqataan. Heen ḳeeqataan.
3 words. One verb with a preverb, and then, well, I think there's 2 preverbs. One specifies like a location with a noun, I guess. And then the other is mandatory because the verb is in the future mode and is qa conjugation.
That's not trap.
No.
Heen ḳeeqataan.
Heen. Can anybody hear the preverb?
Heen ḳeeqataan.
It's a little hard to hear. So if I were to say this slow, I'd say heen ye akwatan.
Heen ḳeeqataan.
His motion looks like he's scooping it up.
Mm-hmm. So with qa conjugation, so with a future verb, so if I say, okay, let's do a future verb. So if the verb is yaq'e, which is ga conjugation, and then we have a verb, well, let's start with yeedát, which is na conjugation. And let's say ʼakha, which is 0 conjugation. And then let's say well, this ya akanatan. And this is, oops, this needs to be ye. So when we put these into the future, so this is imperfective, 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 and progressive. So how would I say they are going to eat it? So ʼakha is they are eating it.
Awacha.
For the future, ʼawacha would be they ate it. Perfective.
Akwacha.
So yeedát, it is that way. What's the future form of that?
Yeqati.
Yeqati. Yaq'e, it is good, or they are good. What's the future of that one?
Okay.
Yeah, so it has to have K. So because it's ga conjugation, must have K in front of it. And so that is a mandatory thing. It will be good. And this is ye akanatan. They are lowering an empty container. All of this is built into the verb, right? And so the future form of this, you'd have to have ye again because it's qa, right? And so These are just some things to think about, right? Ye akuk watan, which gets us to
Hin ḳeeqatan.
oh, I think it's just akwatan, sorry. So you'd have anatan and akwatan. Fix it in the notes. So that's a future. And even it's specifying an empty container. And what container are we talking about?
The water.
The water container. So if we say, so it's interesting. So we've got hin, yeedát, hin, ye akwatan. What is this hin? What is that doing? Tlingit is so interesting because it does a lot of stuff with, like, this is 3 words. And this could have a very long translation if you wanted it to.
Walk along the river.
Along the water, yes. So along the water, they are going to they're going to lower the container. That's why it's got ye in there. They're going to dip this down, right? So this is where the translation work is so interesting. Hin akwatan. He is going to, and you could say scoop out some water. Like he's going to lower the container down into the water. He's going to put the container into the water. You've got options in terms of how you want to translate this. And so I keep bringing this up because there will probably come a time, if you keep doing this work, we don't have enough people who could translate right now, and you're going to run into these questions. And it's not about a right or wrong type of thing. It's an interpretation. So who wants to offer an interpretation for this?
He's going to the water.
Well, he already arrived at the water. Now he's going to put this container in the water. And there's different ways you could look at that too in terms of how to translate that.
Chocolate two hour nickel. Chocolate 2 hour nickel. Chocolate 2 hour nickel. Chocolate 2 hour nickel.
How many words? What do you think?
Can we hear it at 0.75?
Yeah.
Is that possible, please?
At what? Half speed?
Sure.
Chocolate 2 hour nickel. Chocolate 2 hour nickel. Chocolate 2 hour nickel.
First word has a suffix on it.
Awanuk.
Chagut.
Chocolate 2 hour nickel. Chocolate 2 hour nickel.
Okay, that could be. Are you hearing chakut awanak or chakute 2 awanak?
Honestly, I'm mostly hearing just chagu, but trying to think of what sound could be snipped in between.
This is one option.
Chocolate 2 hour nickel.
Or is it Or is it ʼatudli.átk? And we have our nook.
ʼatudli.átk. ʼatudli.átk.
I think it's this first one.
That's I'm leaning that direction.
ʼatudli.átk.
It could be ʼatudli, but I don't. I mean, that would be differently. So 2-hour nook would be you could feel something, like you could feel it, right? And there's different, like if you say ḳoon, 2-hour nook, they felt angry. So sometimes it could refer to like your feelings. But I think in this case, like he could feel that something was there. And I think in this case, it's a little bit different than like I reached out and I could feel, because we have to keep in mind he's blind, right? So it's not like he reached out and he could feel this table with his hand. I think it's more like he could sense that something, And so we either have ʼatudli, which would be, ʼatudli sounds like it's different. So you could say ʼatudli 2-hour nook, he felt different. I think ʼatudli 2-hour nook, for a long time, he could feel something. That's what I think.
And why wouldn't he say to a nook? Like if that's what I'd just be interested to see what comes next, eh? But I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just asking, eh? But
2-hour nook.
2-hour, like I hear for 2-hour nook, I think because you could say to a nook, like you could say that as well. But I think to a nook is definitely your feelings, like talking about ʼstúdenúk and these other things, this is how I'm feeling emotionally. But 2-hour nook is like, I think it's a little bit different, but very, very similar.
okay, sheesh.
We'll do one more and then we'll go. What's that?
That 2-hour nook is a physical feeling. He's feeling it.
I think it's more, I think in this case would be like, if you said to a nook, that's how he feels. Like, this is when I'm talking about my feelings. I feel upset, I feel angry, I feel happy. But when you say 2-hour nook, like, for me, I think, and I'll look at it a little bit more and find some other examples, but I think it's sort of like, something felt like something to him. I think that's what we're getting to. Or he could sense maybe something was there. That's what I'm sort of leaning towards right now.
Okay. Gonna change.
ʼatudli.átk. ʼatudli.átk.
Just ʼatudli.átk. What do you think?
It's just like a boat to his.
Yeah, so just like a boat. And then what do we do with the ʼatudli.átk? And something like this, I think you can have several interpretations, right? So ʼatudli.átk is like, that could be that's how he felt, that's how he thought, that's what he wanted. I think those are kind of your three options with that. And for this one, I would say to him, and you could say to him, or he thought. But again, like in some of the stuff, it's so interesting, like the way you would say these things, and this is the benefit of going from Tlingit to English. Like we do all these little sort of bits and pieces and all these other things, and as we start to put it together, we see and we might come back to this thing 5 years from now and individually or collectively decide, well, that's a little different, I think, right? And so it's really fun stuff because it starts to get so expansive and it's so much fun. Okay, before we go, I know we're running a little over. Let's do. Oh, these are so hard. Okay. Now he's at work.
Español, Yucatán.
Nanéin.
Tingit ʻéináx. Yeedát.
Yeedát.
Okay. He was in bed. Yeedát. There's another yeedát. It's the night of the yeedát. Yeedát kuk yewuti. But for Tlingit, like we would need some information. But like, is he not in bed now though? And so, anyways, fun stuff. Keep it going. We got to the 2 minutes and 24 seconds. I think that makes us almost officially halfway there. So we're going to get into a higher gear just to sort of move through and try and get through the story before the semester ends on us. So, if you can get to the 3 minute mark or the 3.5 minute mark, that would be great. And I guess I feel like it's been quite a while since we've done some language production things. So why don't you, as if you need more to do, but I think language production is good. So can you folks come up with 5 sentences about going somewhere? Hechjes yek qinuk at naku. You're not just going to sit there, go around. Get going. So get to the 3 minute mark, 3.5 if you can, and then write 5 sentences about going places. Just anything to do with going places.
Do you want this in the Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, if you can put it in the Excel spreadsheet, it'd be nice for us to revisit that because we kind of it's my fault, and we walked away from it, and just left it behind. ʻatudli spreadsheet. Okay. Yakecha, Johan. Grillchish klein. Yiguayach.
Cheese.
Cheese. That was a very fun class.
Yay, grillchish.